Yes, sir. I'm for Christchurch West Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of these estimates. And of course, coming after the last speaker for the Barbados Labour Party, it is very interesting that the Barbados Labour Party continues really its focus on its inability to even respond to estimates that were placed before the House. The last member gave Barbados a glimpse of what a future possible Barbados Labour Party would be like, and he said that they would put in place a code of conduct to ensure that every Barbados Labour Party person goes to work. And that is really very interesting, because you shouldn't have to put in place a code of conduct to ensure that people who are really hardworking and who desire to work. But if the whip of the Barbados Labour Party from the onset recognizes that they are not industrious people and that they need to have something, they need to have some code of conduct to force them to work, then you know what we are up against. In fact, Mr. Speaker, if only they would have put in place that code of conduct at the beginning of this term, then we would have seen more of them in the House.
That's right, that's right.
In fact, most of them who are sitting and standing at me, Mr. Speaker, I actually don't recognize half of them over there. Because I don't see them in here. I don't see them in here. It's as though that they got up this morning, put on a particular suit that says, "Take me to the Parliament," and they came. But I don't see a lot of them in here. And I agree with the member for St. George North. Something must be done to force them to work. Something must be done to force them to work. And if it takes a code of conduct, even although you will not be in government, then put it in place. I want to challenge the members of the Barbados Labour Party to put this conduct in place now. Don't wait for anything that you believe could happen or we know it's not going to happen. These members of the Barbados Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, are totally undesirable. In fact, I had a phrase for them. Mr. Speaker, as I listened to some of the contributions. Because I believe that the Barbados Labour Party in its current configuration, Mr. Speaker, is one of the main obstacles to progress in Barbados. In its current configuration, the Barbados Labour Party, which is a shadow of itself, represents the main obstacle, one of the main obstacles to progress in Barbados. They are deceptively destructive, Mr. Speaker. They are deceptively destructive because they are prone to mislead. They are prone to mislead this House in so many ways. They are prone to mislead this House in so many ways. Mr. Speaker, I am not surprised that the Leader of the Opposition could not find anything sensible to say about these estimates. She spent the greatest service she has done to Barbados is to wind up her contribution in less than 10 minutes without having addressed the estimates. Now, you say, for example, the Barbados Labour Party would have said in this contribution that, you know, they don't believe in the plan, the economic plan that has been agreed by the social partnership. All three arms of the social partnership sat and agreed and worked on the economic stabilization plan, and the Barbados Labour Party says they don't believe in it. They said it's a charade. It cannot stabilize Barbados. That's what they said. But the member for St. Joseph, in his contribution, very deliberately misled the House and misled Barbadians. He deliberately, in my view, well, I would say deliberately, but I know he misled the House and Barbados. He quoted selectively, Mr. Speaker, from the statements of the various entities, the statement of the Barbados private sector, and also the statement of the Congress of Trade Unions. And he did not mention one very salient point made by the Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations. He didn't read from the top. He read at the bottom saying that the Congress believes that the formation and implementation of the plan will strengthen and so on. But he didn't say this part. And I want to quote from page 4. The Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Association of Barbados approves. The Congress approves of the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan of 2018. That's what it said. The Congress, C2SAB, approves of the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan of 2018, which was developed after discussion and consultation among the social partners and its committees. But this is the same member, Mr. Speaker, this member for St. Joseph is the same member who goes around Barbados telling Barbados a host of things about crime in Barbados and what the government should or should not do about crime. And then when the government seeks to do something about crime in amending the Police Act, then he cries foul. He cries foul, Mr. Speaker. He cries. That is why he should not be believed. He cannot be believed, Mr. Speaker, because he goes out there. And I cited about 3 quotes from him. 3 quotes. He went to the public, Mr. Speaker, in July of 2017, on the 18th to be precise. And he asking the government to do more to fight violent crime. Kept a lot of noise. The government must do more to fight violent crime in Barbados. July the 18th. And then he goes again, Mr. Speaker, on August the 30th. And he calls for tougher stance on crime in Barbados. He says, Mr. Speaker, that violent crime in Barbados had reached crisis proportions in Barbados. In fact, he went further. He went further and called for the defense force to be mobilized in Barbados.
He wanted the defense
This
force.
member for St. Joseph
He wanted defense force running around.
called for the mobilization. Things were so bad that the Barbados Defense Force should be deployed. He said, Mr. Speaker,
No, say that again.
and you see why I'm saying this, you know?
Say that again.
They cry all kinds of things. And when the government takes action for partisan political purposes, they go on the other side. But this member, I want to zoom in on him.
He wanted the what?
I want to take some time to deal with him.
He wanted the what?
The member for St. Joseph called for the defense force to be deployed. He said, we are a country in shock. He said that.
And what?
After the youngsters in Marleyville were gunned down, he said, we are a country in shock. He said we had 5 gun-related homicides in August alone, and 4 in the last 9 days, so bring out the defense force. That's what he said. That's what he said. And Mr. Speaker, it gets worse. It gets worse. On December the 29th, he lamented the damage being done to tourism as a result of the increase in crime in Barbados. He said there were 23 murders for the year. And he said it's not a matter on which they want to score political points. He said that. He said that. And in December the 30th, 2017, he said the government was not dealing with violence. And he again lamented violent crime.
And wanted the defense force out.
And then, Mr. Speaker, in January of 2018, in January 2018, the government brought to this House an act to amend the Police Act in Barbados to give the police additional powers to deal with the same crime. And the member, who's a shadow member, and he's only a shadow, can only be a shadow member of the AG and so on, always attacking the Attorney General for claiming not to do anything. He stood up and he questioned why we should have curfews in Barbados. So how can we believe him, Mr. Speaker? How can we believe him? We cannot believe him. And come in here picking up a sustainable recovery plan and saying you don't believe in it? Well, we don't believe in you. We don't believe you. We don't believe you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to go further. I want to go further because, you see, I hope the public of Barbados understands what is going on in here.
He wanted the defense force running about here.
You can imagine?
Armed soldiers.
This man jump up,
armed soldiers.
jump up for partisan political purposes all around Barbados, telling the country that we're not handling crime. And the minute the government deal with the crime situation through legislation, and I want to tell you now, all the talk about constitutionality and so on, I would want to challenge the Barbados Labour Party, Look at the additional powers given to the police in 1979. Look at the powers and go to court and claim that they too are unconstitutional. Look at the amendment. I want to go further, Mr. Speaker, because you know what? We have the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance in his contribution. The Minister of Finance made a number of submissions to this House. The Minister of Finance made a number of disclosures in this House. And you know, the Barbados Labour Party is saying, that we have failed in the economic management of Barbados. I am not going to be misled by you guys. I think I have dealt enough damage to him. But the Minister of Finance made the point. Well, you know, when you finish talking loud, I will stop. I will continue. The Minister of Finance, in the face of being attacked by the Barbados Labour Party on numerous occasions about mismanaging the economy, because, you know, in 2008, in our first budget, when we were talking about the international recession and all the issues that were happening in the Barbados economy, the Barbados Labour Party said to the government that it should spend the foreign reserves. It said it should spend the foreign reserves, put money into the economy, all kinds of things. We should get economic growth in Barbados. We need growth, they said. That is why my contention, Mr. Speaker, is that this bunch cannot be believed. In fact, they come in here and they purport to give the government advice, and once the government goes down the road of trying to manage the economy for partisan, unpatriotic purposes, they go in a public domain and try to create mayhem and all kinds of things. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, if we look at the IMF report of 2007, it is almost indicating to Barbados what happens when you don't take action. The IMF in 2006, 2007, called on the government, even although there was growth, called on the government of the day to take action to protect the foreign reserves of Barbados and to protect the future growth prospects of Barbados. And the government of the day, based on what has happened, what we inherited, those actions were not taken. I don't mind, those actions were not taken. But the Minister of Finance says, for example, because if you listen to the opposition leader made a number of points. I want to recite them very carefully before I say what the Minister of Finance says. The opposition leader made these points in her very brief remarks. She said, we have a misplaced public sector program with high debt. She said, the plan which has been written by the partnership, social partnership, cannot stabilize Barbados reserves next week or next month. And she says, the numbers, she says that the numbers and the estimates in relation to the QEH are less than what they need. Of course, you know, they put a cap on the QEH. They put a cap on the QEH. She said the QEH should get a single cent above what was given. Everybody knows a cap was placed on the community hospital. And she lamenting the fact that nothing was done about the factory. Nothing was done about the all-purpose factory. Do you know there were three main projects that elude the Barbados Labour Party in office. One was the all-purpose factory that they never did. Matter of fact, it was one of the three projects that the IMF said that the Barbados Labour Party, if they executed, would burn up the economy. That was one. The next one was the prison. And the other one was the expansion of the highway. They did two projects, but of course, those projects done within short proximity had impacts, negative impacts, in relation to the rollover of funds in the government. She said, it's a charade. This country deserves better. This country must pause. This is about country ability to see June. And then she talked about the debt and so on. Now, the Minister of Finance, in his report, addressed the matters. He said there were 3 consecutive years of growth. 3 consecutive years. 0.8%, 1.6%, and 1%. But that's growth. But under the Barbados Labour Party, you had about average of 3% growth. You had an average of 3% growth, but failed dismally to address any of the infrastructure problems in Barbados that we face now. The Barbados Labour Party boasted of average of 3% growth. 3% growth in the economy of Barbados. 3% growth. You can talk where you got me from, but you are to blame. They blame you. They said and blame you for all the economic problems that the Barbados Labour Party face. And I have no access to Graham because he's on his side. He led a government, Mr. Speaker. He led a Barbados Labour Party government, the Honourable St. Peter, that boasted of a 3% growth on average. 3% growth, but you know what? At what cost? All of the major infrastructure challenges were neglected in Barbados. All of them. A decaying water plant, no water mains were changed, a decaying QEH plant, and they failed miserably, Mr. Speaker, to put in place any kind of sustainable plan for an expansion in the University of West Indies. All of those were done. But the Minister of Finance went on to say, you will have your chance. The Minister of Finance went on to say, the issue of printing money in Barbados has become a big issue. The government printing too much money. But the Minister of Finance says that there has been a plan to wean the government off of the central bank support. And wean the country. And he made some very interesting disclosure as to the figures. From $714.5 million to $96 million. A significant development in Barbados. A significant development. He also said there has been sustained progress in bringing the fiscal deficit to manageable proportions. And this was an issue that the Barbados Labour Party had been making fuss about. And he gave the figures too. So if you are saying, if the Barbados Labour Party is saying that the government has done nothing, that we are a waste of time, then address these issues. Address these issues of performance. He also said, Mr. Speaker, he said, because you know they have been attacking sandals. The sandals investment, Mr. Speaker, has come up for significant attacks. Significant attacks. And indeed, the minister outlined, even in relation to one project that is coming, in relation to the sandals at Almond. The sandals at Almond project, an injection, a potential injection of about US $400 million in the Barbados economy. 1,800 jobs to be created. and 550 rooms. Now, how could you, in all honesty, launch a war on the government for coming to the House and giving the country a report that although we have not done all that we are supposed to do, fine, but a report that tells a story of an economy that is progressing. It tells a story of an economy that is progressing. He also spoke about the continued recovery in tourism spend. Because you know the member for St. Michael North always comes in here and attack the Minister of Tourism and saying that, well, the numbers going up, the tourism spend going down. No, we have reported that there has been recovery in relation to the tourism spend. And I have even dealt with culture, sports, and youth that have been a resounding success in Barbados. A resounding success coming from the investment in Carifesta. Even, for example, one of the two major infrastructure projects that the Barbados Labour Party neglected, the Queen's Park buildings, for example. We had to rescue that particular project. We had to rescue that project. The Daphne Joseph Hackett Theatre had to be rescued. The last time that any work was done on that was in 1981, and totally neglected. In fact, the vagrants had taken over. The vagrants had taken over that project. And even in the midst of tight economic circumstances, we had to rescue the Queen's Park building and bring the Daphne Joseph Hackett Theatre back into operation. We had to do the same thing in relation to the Queen's Park steel shed under the last Minister of Culture. And that particular project had to be rescued as well. We had to rescue that. And you shouldn't talk about the stadium at all. Barbados Labour Party should not talk about the stadium at all. In fact, they did nothing over the 30-year period. You should be ashamed of the stadium. I look at the minutes of the Planning and Priorities Committee. The Planning and Priorities Committee, in which the Barbados Labour Party outlined a whole plan to rescue the stadium, and did absolutely nothing. That's what I say, that you claim that you had 3% average growth, but what do you have to show for it? A neglect of infrastructure. You have a neglect of infrastructure. You had the Minister of Water Resources have to scratch his head to fix the water mains in Barbados. And now we're having to deal with the sewage treatment plant on the south coast. What infrastructure have you protected in Barbados? None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
I remember. Yes, there's a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, that
I remember. Just a minute. Yes, I remember. Yes. West Central. Yes, tell me how.
He fails to understand that his government has been in office now for 3,700 days. He cannot be talking about a BLP regime over 10 years ago not doing infrastructure.
Yeah. Very well,
it has to be at him.
No point of order found. I remember, please continue.
I want to continue with my speech, which is clearly rattling the Barbados Labour Party, but you know, they don't like to hear the truth. They don't like to hear the truth. They don't like to hear the truth. They don't like the truth. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I stand in direct opposition to any claim made by the Barbados Labour Party that we in Barbados are a broken people. I heard the member for St. Joseph indicate that we in Barbados are a broken people, and that we are now in survival mode. You know, it's the same thing. It's the same allegation. It is the same kind of anti-nationalistic jargon that we heard from the leader of the opposition in the aftermath of a Carifesta that was
members, let's have some order. It's not going to help the people shouting across the floor at each other like this, please.
I know, but it's the same kind of anti-nationalistic jargon which the Barbados Labour Party, the current Barbados Labour Party, like to spout across Barbados. I heard it during Carifesta when the opposition leader, after going around Carifesta and clearly having a good time, and recognizing that Carifesta was a resounding success, including the member for St. Thomas who journeyed with me up to the heritage site in her constituency, had a great time, walked by the mural, enjoyed herself, and only because her leader went out saying that she's ashamed to be a Barbadian in relation to Carifesta, which is a very shameful act, And the member for St. Thomas journeyed with me up to the monument.
Yes, I remember.
When she speaks now, occurred well before the honourable member would have made any comment about it. The honourable member is misleading the chamber.
No point of order from. Honourable, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm saying that
$2 million
the opposition members are engaging in some very pejorative language because Barbados is not a broken country. The people of Barbados are not broken. The people of Barbados are proud people, a very proud people, and therefore to make those kind of pejorative statements really and truly, to me should not be a part of the discourse in this House. But I continue, Mr. Speaker. The government of Barbados would have come to this House and reported on what has happened over the last financial year, projecting, of course, estimates of revenue and expenditure, which are required for the functionality of Barbados. It cannot be disputed, Mr. Speaker, that we have had over the years in Barbados, we have had deep structural economic challenges from one government to the next. Those deep structural economic challenges, Mr. Speaker, have become the very careful study by respective governments in relation to how to fix them. These challenges, Mr. Speaker, continue to impact on the Barbados economy. What we have done is to maintain the stability of Barbados. And the member for St. Michael Northwest, the member for St. Michael Northeast lamented that the young people of Barbados are not being protected, and that that there's no kind of protection for the young people of Barbados. But the Minister of Finance made a number of disclosures. He said, for example, that the government is providing $73 million to the University of West Indies, $73 million to allow the university to function, to allow for young people to continue their studies. And in fact, he did say that further in the financial year, there will have to be more money to deal with that. So how can you say that Barbados is a broken country and that the people are broken country people? The minister went on to say, Mr. Speaker, that $19 million was being provided to the welfare department to cushion those who are less fortunate. That does not connote to me to be a broken people. The minister went on to say, Mr. Speaker, that there were four new loan programs signed with the CDB and the CAF. One of those was to address the Student Revolving Loan Fund. The Student Revolving Loan Fund, Mr. Speaker, is designed to provide assistance to persons to further their education. And yet still we're hearing from the opposition that the government is not doing anything, and so on. He also announced, Mr. Speaker, that more resources will be placed at the disposal of the Cultural Industries Development Fund. And of course, we are aware that the fund has not been capitalized. The Cultural Industries Development Fund will be capitalized, and $15 million will be provided to that fund through the Industrial Development Credit Fund. And I believe that that, Mr. Speaker, is a significant announcement. And given the significant progress already made by the Cultural Industry Development Authority in creating the environment upon which creatives can get ahead with their various cultural businesses, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that that particular injection of funding will help to position the cultural industries in Barbados in relation to our strategy of ensuring that that could help in the further diversification of the Barbados economy. And, Mr. Speaker, we have, of course, to carry on the work of further diversifying our economy. We recognize that.
Please wind up. Your time has
We recognize,
expired.
Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, we recognize, Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, that there is still more to be done in stabilizing, further destabilizing the Barbados economy, but it has to be done by a government that recognizes what the problem is and that sets so on a strategy to correct the problem. It cannot be done, Mr. Speaker, by empty promises and a charade in relation to how the economy should be managed. So, Mr. Speaker, with those words, I want to again pledge my support for these estimates. I know that some things I've said have created some wounds in the Barbados Labour Party, but we remain committed to the task of strengthening the Barbados economy, and that we will do.